Of course. Speaking to a speaking coach, that is awesome. I was just sharing with you that my biggest fear in life was public speaking. I couldn't stand it. Like I speeches in school, like standing up and with that shaking and that paper and just like, oh, what is the teacher going to think? What are the kids going to think? What's going on? Even into my acting little gigs that I had in high school, I'm very shy. I didn't really have a voice. And so I'm so excited to talk with you. And I would just love for you just to tell us about your journey to becoming a speaker and an intuitive public speaking coach and what inspired you to choose this path.
Yeah. Well, the path probably started before I realized it because it was like I could sense what was blocking people, but no one else was ever mentioning it in the acting classes that I took. So I resisted it, thinking if this were worth something, someone else would be talking about it. So I kind of want to start with that. That's the intuitive, soulful speaking coach part. And I started acting formally when I was about 7 years old. I was playing Let's Make Up an Episode of the Brady Bunch with some friends, and I had my hair curled up in little pin curls. And then, kids being kids, my friends got bored and they said, "We're going to go off to the pool now." And I said, "Okay, I'll meet you later. I'm going to finish the story." And my mom found me in the backyard talking to myself, pretending to be Cindy Brady. And instead of saying, "No, stop that, that's weird," she went, "Huh, I think I'm going to take her to an acting class." And like many things in life, theater has a light side and a dark side. The dark side is the stuff that you see in movies and television where it's like competition based and backstabbing. And I think there's an old movie called The Understudy where the understudy actually kills the person in front of her in order to get the role. Mm-hmm. The light side of theater is what I call my first spiritual zone. Actors and other theater folks are able to be present and connected with each other through anything in a way that most of the world isn't. And I loved that world. I was drawn to that world, and I experienced many moments where things got timeless and I was in the moment, utterly present. And I also had moments where it wasn't going that way as I was kind of learning how to make that repeatable. And I kept feeling called to quit my day job, which was as an executive assistant in the Silicon Valley, closer to where you live than where I live, or smack dab in the middle. And I kept resisting it. And it was like there was a voice saying, "You need to go toward a more aligned life. This sort of character study that you've done while being an executive assistant is over. You've learned what you're meant to learn here. You can act all these people. You can play all these people that you're people watching." And around that time, I was doing an exercise in my favorite acting class ever, where the whole class was focused on me. Whereas normally there would be 2 or 4 of us up there, and half the class would be watching and half the class would be working. And I kept like putting on the "I'm fine" jaw tension mask and armoring up in front of my heart. And eventually, Richard, my instructor, stopped the exercise and he said, "Whatever that is that you're doing, like pulling yourself back together, stop doing that. I'm asking you to continue to be in the moment from where you are, even if you're laughing hysterically and it's supposed to be a funeral scene. Whatever's going on, stop trying to like reset." And I said, "I'm not that comfortable having everyone's eyes on me." And he took off his glasses and said, "Well, you've picked a strange set of careers for yourself then. You're an actor, a teacher." I was just beginning to speak. "You're an actor, a teacher, a speaker. Part of you wants this. Part of you knows you're meant to be here." And it was like my soul heard him, and that rang true. And I deeply trusted him and the intimate, safe, creative space, courageous space that he held. So I jumped back into the exercise and I was actively releasing all those old habits and those tensions and that armoring and those masks. And when the exercise was over, I remember looking out at all of my classmates, and I could see and feel what kind of day every single one of them was having. And it was my first moment of oneness that lasted past when the acting was over. And that, when I look back with how I work with people today and the people that I love to work with, that moment was the pivotal moment. I went to graduate school for theater after that. I studied leadership after that moment. And the people that I work with all tend to be ambitious empaths or sensitive visionaries, highly intuitive people like myself, who are thinking that their ability to sense what's going on with others is a flaw that they need to suppress or hide, rather than a superpower that they need to learn how to use. Because when we use that superpower, we can take an audience from acting to speaking. We can take an audience on a transformational ride that people who can't sense what's going on with the audience can't do as fully or as easily as we can.
Wow. Yes, and it's true. I remember like I felt like I had to be like everybody else. And then thinking back about to your childhood where, I love the Brady Bunch, by the way. I watched it when I was young. I mean, I was, it came out before I was born. I was born in 81. But I love the show and just using that imagination and at a young age, and then having that. But then when we grow up, we forget that we have an imagination and we lose it because of the conditioning and we don't have that voice anymore. We have to like we're thinking like we have to be like so and do what they're doing and just like follow them even if it doesn't feel right to us. Like our gut normally tells us like, hey, that's not right there. Maybe you should try to do something that you want to do. So I'm so happy that you're doing this for others and it's so needed right now. And I think we're in a shift where people are finally gaining their voice, like I was mentioning to you myself. Finally, like I'm like, I've never thought I would ever be speaking on a podcast. Like 4 years ago, I would never. Actually, 2 years ago, I would thought I would ever be speaking on a podcast. So you'd be surprised at the gifts that everyone has, and it's amazing. Yeah, but thanks for sharing that. I appreciate that.